This video, I'm going to be talking about why MX Bikes pros are so much faster than you. And this video is specifically targeted towards those people that are just about to make a pro race, but they can't. That like 40th to 80th player, right, in qualifying. The guys that just can't do it, man. They're so close. And why should you listen to Doc? Well, you know what? I've been on the far outside of qualifying, outside the top 100, and I've worked my way up. I used to think that the pros were cheating, all right? This is where I've at. I'm just like you, all right? I remember talking to my wife being like, man, these guys gotta be cheating. There's no way these guys are going that much faster than me. And well, you know what? They are, all right? And today we're gonna talk about how, why, and what to do and how to get better, all right? I'm gonna give you 5 ways that'll help you improve, and I'm gonna throw in a bonus one at the end, so make sure you stick around for that one because I do think that was pretty important. The first reason why MX Bikes pros are so much better than you is because, well, they have more focused time into the game. And I'm not just talking about hours, all right? Because there are people with thousands of hours that are still bots at this game, and there are people with 100 hours that are way better than I'll ever be and probably you'll ever be. There's just some people that are freaks, but that doesn't take away from the focused gameplay that they've put in. And I don't mean, well, they jumped on and they jumped in a server with their friends and they joined a little papiti server or something like that. They're not hot lapping club or forest. Get off the tracks, boys. Come on. But what they've done is they have spent countless hours focusing on beating lap times, focusing on beating my lap times, the top pros lap times, their lap times. They've focused on improving instead of just playing the game. When you take the time and you put the effort into improving rather than just getting on and playing, this goes for anything in life, by the way, your ability to advance in whatever you're putting your mind to is significantly higher than if you just got on and did the motions. I'm talking about things like racing their own ghosts for hours, trying to close in just that extra 10th or 2 tenths. I'm talking about working on corners, hitting the same corner over and over again until we're actually able to go through it how we want to. I'm talking about scrubbing jumps. Scrubbing in Supercross is so important and nobody really does it. And if you just take the time to scrub for hours and crash and learn how to do it and get that muscle memory down, you'll shave a ton of time. Now, that is kind of a given. I know that's gonna be one that people are like, well, of course, Doc, the more hours. But I'm telling you, 5 hours of focused gameplay will outweigh 20 hours of just getting on and spinning laps with your friends. So if you're on the cusp of qualifying, but you just can't do it, try focusing up and actually working on improving instead. Now, let's move on to something else that may seem obvious, but I have a little caveats to it, or a little bit of more in depth. Now, I'm talking about that pros don't crash. And this is why they're so much better. Now, I'm not just talking about, well, they can spin laps without crashing, but I'm talking about how they're able to ride the edge and be put in situations where they might crash and somehow they're able to save it. Now, this comes down to, I think, in my opinion, this comes down to a lot of muscle memory, which again alludes to my time investment in the game, but I also think it comes down to how you use the right stick, the right or lean, the forward, back, left, right stick. You can over jump into a corner and be completely sideways, but if you use your right stick to outweigh that, to counterweight that, you usually can land and not crash. There are tons of times in pro races where you'll see top guys like Skills look like they're completely out of control, but somehow they're able to save it and they don't actually go down. I mean, even there are situations if you over jump something and you go into a backflip, being able to actually make the backflip so that you don't crash and you can stay up on 2 wheels. Now, another big place that this happens is in the start of the race, the very first lap. This is really what makes or breaks top players. A lot of people talk about how the opening laps of pro races or just races in MX Bikes are RNG and, well, I got taken out and blah, 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 and oh, it's because I was in the back, I can never get a good start. Well, as much as I would love for that to be true, there are players in this game that consistently get good starts. I'm not talking about they just got the whole shot and they checked out and that was it. I'm talking about how they're able to manage that first lap, right? Because there is carnage in MX Bikes. It is a little bit of randomness in that first turn, but I think Trojan is a great example of that. Trojan is somebody that is able to survive the opening lap, like literally no matter what. Watch any of that dude's videos. He does not crash on the first lap, and he always puts himself in a good position. And that comes down to just being smart and the decisions that you're making. Another reason they don't crash is, well, they're just freaking consistent, man. Recently in the opener for MXGP race, I was in a 3rd and 2nd position for about 20 minutes, all right? 20 minutes of that race, I was sitting in a podium position. I had 1 crash, and that put me all the way back to 9th place. And the thing that's amazing about that is that the guys behind me did not crash. They were right there behind me the whole time, and it was just like a train of us running through that track, lap after lap after lap after lap. I had 1 mistake that put me all the way back. Now, those guys had a bunch of mistakes after I crashed, and then I was able to work my way back up. And then you know what? I had another mistake, and it put me all the way back to 8th. But in that 35-minute race or 40-minute race, I had 2 crashes that basically took me from 2nd place and put me back to 8th place. That's crazy. In 45 minutes, 2 crashes were from a top, almost a win. I mean, Finn was out there, but like a very high podium position back to barely making the top 10. And that just comes down to, again, I really think that focused gameplay of these guys put in the time to make sure that they don't crash. And also it comes down to making sure that the decisions that you're making are the right ones in the race. If you overjump something, not trying to go for the inside line. If you underjump something, knowing how to case a jump. There's just a lot of little things that come into play to making sure that you don't go down in the middle of the races and lose a bunch of spots. Now, the third reason pros are so much better than you is going to come down to, this is more of like a qualifying thing, because I know that there's a lot of people kind of right on the cusp of qualifying for a pro race, but they're not able to. And that's going to be braking and corners. And I know I've kind of harped on this in the past, but it seems like a lot of people don't really understand it, or they aren't applying it. Let's talk about corners first of all. The most important thing you can do in MX bikes is make sure that you have good corner entry. I've heard people argue with me that, well, no, corner exit is more important, but there's not enough torque, there's not enough acceleration in MX bikes to warrant having a bad corner entry and just making it up in the exit. MX bikes is a momentum based game, period, end of story. That's all that it is, baby. It's a street bike game. We got to remember this. It's a street bike game. That means apexing and carrying momentum is the most important thing. It's not a dirt bike game. MX bikes is built off of a street bike game. That means momentum, momentum, momentum. That's why Supercross, they've had to make all these changes in Supercross so we can't quad in everywhere, because all everybody ever does is just rail the outside of the berms and they can quad in. That's why you see them putting acceleration bumps and all these ruts and stuff. That's to try to stop us from quadding in every single rhythm section to make it a little bit more realistic and a little bit tighter racing. Now, in outdoors, what that means is opening up your corners and really thinking like you're playing F1. You got to treat this game like you're playing a car racing game where you open up your corners and you hit your apexes. Even if there's ruts, a lot of the time staying on the inside of the ruts is better than going in the ruts. It does depend on how the track is made. A lot of tracks you do have to stay in the ruts. But even if you do have to stay in the ruts, making sure that you enter the rut from the beginning of the rut with the proper curve of the turn, rather than just slamming into the rut and trying to make a 180 or a 90, you will save so much time, not only in the corner, but down the next straightaway. Because if you have good corner entry, you're able to go down the straights so much faster. I'm talking a couple miles an hour, 3, 4, 5 miles an hour faster down the straightaways, which you know what that means? That means scrub. That means you could probably get up to another gear, which then it compounds, right? Also what that means is if you're opening up your corners, you're looking at the track differently, which that kind of alludes to some of my things coming up here. And as far as braking goes, the most important thing in bikes with brakes is to try and not use them, or to turn your brake gain down in the settings as much as possible, where they're still able to be used when you need them, but they don't slow you down. Because again, like I was saying, it's a momentum based game, and specifically in braking bumps, if you brake for whatever reason, it just binds the bike up in bike. So the best thing you can do is just engine brake. That means downshifting into the corner rather than actually using the brakes. And then in the corners, if you need to turn a little bit tighter, what you can do is you can kind of ride the brakes through the corner a little bit, but you want to make sure that your brake gain is really low because if it's too high, you'll actually like stop in the corner, and obviously we don't want to be doing that. But if you can put a little bit of tension on those brakes, it'll help you turn a little bit tighter. Now, I did just kind of mention scrubbing, and this is another big one. This is probably one that I struggle with the most personally. I think people really undervalue how much time scrubbing can actually save you in MX bikes. And there are multiple ways you can scrub. You can do the traditional where you just crank your handlebars to the left or to the right and you throw the bike sideways, and you know, that works sometimes. That works a lot in outdoors. There's another way where you can sit down right when your front tire leaves the top of the jump and you lean forward. You sit and lean forward, and it kind of just compresses the bike into the lip, and then you kind of go straight instead of going up. You can also combine the two where you crank it to the left or to the right and you sit and lean forward, and that's crazy. That's how you stay real low. But personally, when I'm in qualifying, I'm often too concerned about putting together the perfect lap that I forget to make sure that I'm scrubbing as low as possible. I'm too concerned about my corners and all this stuff that I forget to try and scrub. And afterwards, when I get back into testing after the race or whatever, I'll be scrubbing so much lower because there's no pressure, and I'll be going like a half second to a second faster. And that's something, if we can master that as well, especially in Supercross. Boys, if you can scrub in Supercross consistently, like that is what makes or breaks the 20th qualifying position from the first qualifying guy is scrubs. Everyone's pretty much going through the corners the same way. Everyone's pretty much hitting the same rhythms. But if you can stay super, super low in those rhythms, it's going to be it's going to be a game changer for you, you know? So if you're on the cusp, if you're on that like 60th to 40th qualifying position, you can't get in. What do you got to do? Work on your scrubs. Try that technique where you just lean forward and sit down right when your front tire leaves the top of the jump. That alone, don't scrub, don't like turn left or right, but just do that. That alone will save you a lot of time. Now, my final one is a little bit, I'm not sure, it's a little bit different, but I'm talking about how we learn tracks quickly. This is also something I've struggled with a lot until this year. This is something I had to work on. I literally downloaded a bunch of random tracks on MXB mods, jumped on and tried to put in as fast a lap as I could in 30 minutes and just learn the lines quickly. And this is something that guys like Finn, Cam, Linz, all these guys are so good at. They're able to go around a track once and basically be like, oh, no, outside's not relevant. Oh, inside here is not relevant. They're able to just to figure it out. And that is huge, because especially in outdoors, there are lines that may feel good, you know, that they may feel faster in the line, but one or two corners down the road, they may not be as fast as if you took the other line. And that is something that is really, really important, because you may feel like you're barking. You might be losing a second or a half second in one turn because you took the wrong line. And that half second could be what separates you from qualifying or not qualifying. For instance, at MXGP round 1, I qualified with a 34.5. I qualified 24th. If I would have qualified 5/10 slower than that, which I could lose in one turn, I would not have qualified at all. Now, if I would have qualified 5/10 faster than that, I would have been like a top 8 qualifying time or something like that. It was like difference between a half second was absolutely huge, and you can lose that immediately by taking the wrong line. I really think if you guys jump on a track that has times recorded, you know, Papiti tracks or pro tracks where you can go on MyMXB and look at the times, and you jump on and you try to run fast times in like 20 or 30 minutes, that'll really help you. Just go track to track to track to track and focus on running those fast times. Now, I got a bonus tip for you, and this is confidence. And I know this may sound a little corny, but I believe that it's a very true thing. Confidence in this game is really, really important, and I'm especially at the top level, right? Like confidence in your ability to qualify and not questioning, and just confidence to get in there and go. And now confidence is something that's earned. You don't just have it, right? So in order to build that confidence, I would set some goals for yourself. If you're outside the top 150 qualifying times, you know, try to get into that top 100. Set obtainable goals for yourself, not just like, I need to qualify today and be stressed out about it. Like, work your way up there. The reality is the people that are qualifying for MX Bikes pro races are freaking flying. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is the most competitive year we've ever seen in MX Bikes. Again, my MXGP lap was a burner and it put me 24th, and I wasn't even close to the top qual time. So it's really insane how stacked everything is. So don't expect that you're going to get in there right away And if you're on the cusp, then just work on being better every week and understand that it's probably going to take a little time before you get up in there. Maybe you'll have a crazy lap and you'll get in there, but once you're in there, then you got the confidence, and I think you'll be able to back it up. But set little goals for yourself, right? If you're 150th in qualifying, try to be 100th next week, then try to be 75th, then try to be 50, and understand that it's going to take time, and it takes, because everyone's doing it, right? There's 150 people that are out qualifying you, and everybody's trying to qualify, so everybody's grinding. So it's not very linear, right? Like, you know, you have to progress faster than they're progressing. Like I said at the beginning, as someone that has been on the far outside of qualifying, nowhere near qualifying, to someone that has been just barely qualifying for some of the rounds, to now someone that was qualifying every single round, to someone that got a top 10, and now someone that's not satisfied in a pro race unless he gets a top 5. Like, I feel like I've experienced it, and I know what it takes to get from way outside up there, and this is exactly what I did. All the things I just told you. Grind, focus. Now, I have 1,000,000 hours in the game because I make content and I stream and all that stuff. And listen, you guys probably aren't going to have 5,000 hours in the game, but I don't think that you need 5,000 hours in the game to do well. In fact, I don't think you need anywhere near that amount of time in the game to win races. So don't look at the hours as crazy. You just got to be focused and put the time in and not get on and join the papiti servers. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I love you, boys. I hope this video was enjoyable, and I love you. I really do. And thank you for everything, man. The last few months has just been incredible. I am so blessed by the growth, and I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.